Hello, I'm Brooke Barnes. I'm with the Scott County Health Department. Public Health, Genesis Health System, Unity Point Health Trinity, and Community Healthcare have assembled a panel of local pediatricians to discuss the COVID-19 vaccine that is currently under review by the FDA and the CDC for children ages 5 to 11. We know the COVID-19 pandemic has been extremely challenging for families in our community, and they've had to make difficult decisions about the health and safety of their children. And now they're faced with yet another decision about a new vaccine. But we hope that the information that we're sharing from these pediatricians today will help inform you about the vaccine that will likely be available in our community in the upcoming days. I'd like to introduce our panel of pediatricians. We have Dr. Swetha Kandula, a pediatrician with Community Healthcare. We have Dr. Julie Stecker with Genesis Health System and Dr. Sachin Nanawar with Unity Point Health Trinity. So thank you all for inviting us and participating in this event today. We'll go ahead and get started so that we can get through with the number of questions that we know are on the minds of parents and caregivers in our community. So first, we'll start with Dr. Kandula. Which COVID-19 vaccine is being reviewed currently for children ages 5 to 11? And what is that review process that's taking place?
So it is the Pfizer vaccine that has been submitted for approval, and it is the same vaccine that got initially the emergency use authorization, and it's the one that got the full authorization in August. And the review process, so first, the vaccine manufacturers submit the results of the trials to the FDA. And FDA has an advisory panel who review the whole process thoroughly, and then they make their recommendations to the FDA's approval committee. And after the FDA has given their approval, then it's submitted to the advisory committee of the CDC, and then the final recommendations come down from the CDC.
Thank you. So quite a process it's going through right now. Dr. Stecker, on the minds of families everywhere, how do we know that COVID-19 vaccines are safe for kids? Was there enough representation of the population to really help determine those safety questions that families have?
Yes, so over 2,000 children in this age group from 5 to 11 were studied for several months after getting the vaccine. The vaccine is over 90% effective at preventing any symptomatic infection in that group, and over 100% effective in preventing severe disease in that group that was studied. Significant side effects were very rare, and there were no cases of myocarditis or the heart inflammation that's been making the news a little bit in this group that was studied. So at this point in time, with the information that we know, the risks and benefits, the benefit of the vaccine definitely outweighs any risks that we've seen so far.
Great. Dr. Nanawar, what are the possible side effects of the vaccine in children, especially this age group?
Like any other vaccine, this vaccine will have the similar side effects like a sore arm, some redness, fever, headache, chills. And also in the adolescent age group, they have reported, like with the mRNA vaccine, there were reported cases of myocarditis and pericarditis, but those are very rare, and and those are completely recovered in most of the cases. So the common side effect would be sore arm, headache, myalgias, sore throat, and chills.
So they tend to be anything we would be looking for would really be in the short term, and that there's not long-term concerns with this.
You're right.
Thank you. Dr. Kandula, one of the things, these are much smaller kiddos than those who've been vaccinated so far. What dosage of the vaccine would children get?
So the adults got the 30 micrograms dose, but kids in this age group, the 5 to 11-year-olds, will get a third of that dose. So it's 10 micrograms, and it's 0.2 ml if you look at the volume. And to avoid the confusion, they have manufactured these with an orange top and label. And that is the dose for each dose, and they'll get 2 doses 3 weeks apart.
Okay, so somewhat similar process to how the adults were getting vaccinated.
Yes.
So Dr. Stecker, one of the things we're hearing a lot is about these being new vaccines, but as we've been trying to educate on the mRNA vaccines, while the technology being used for this specific virus is different, this is something that's been around. Can you help families understand the difference really between the mRNA and the other types of like the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine that's out there, which is considered a viral vector vaccine?
Yes. So both the mRNA, which is the Pfizer, the one that would be approved at this point for the 5 to 11, and the viral vector vaccines contain instructions that teach your cells how to create the spike protein that's on the surface of the COVID molecule. So our cells produce those spike proteins to the immune system so that we can develop a good response, so that if you come into contact with the coronavirus out in the community, that your body would be able to remember that and fight it off. So the mRNA vaccine, it's surrounded by tiny lipids that help it get into your cell, but not into the nucleus where your own DNA is, just in the outside of the cell. So then that can teach your body how to make those antibodies to that. The viral vector is where there's actual DNA from the virus is placed inside of a modified version of another virus that cannot cause any illness. So slightly different, but they both create the same antibody response.
Gotcha. Thank you. Dr. Nanawar, the question that I think most parents have on their mind right now is, should my child get the COVID-19 vaccine? So this is your chance to talk to all of the kiddos in our community and our families.
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to answer these questions. And we are getting a lot of these questions a lot. and I think the parents are more excited about the 5 to 11 year vaccine. And yes, definitely, because the children should get vaccinated. The more vaccinated adults and the children in our communities, in our schools, and at extracurricular activities, the more likely it is that we will stop the spread of the COVID-19. Vaccination not only protects your family, but will also help keep our schools, our teachers, and our communities safe. So as we know that COVID can cause like a milder infection in the kids, but even the mild infection has high risk of developing MISC, which is multi-inflammatory syndrome, where it affects the multiple organs of the body, including the kidneys, liver, and multi-systems. So I think there have been 5,000 cases reported so far with MISC, and the most common age group is age 9. So definitely the vaccine will prevent the transmission of the infection in the community, as well as it will protect you against this deadly virus. So definitely your kids should get the vaccine.
Thank you for, again, sharing those risks of the actual virus and the illness itself too. I think that's important to keep in mind. And if there are children that might have a pre-existing condition, what will be your advice to them if you have families who are asking about the vaccine for their children?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, that the children with obesity, asthma, chronic lung disease, or any immunocompromised condition where they require longer steroid treatment, or the children with the cancer, they are at high risk of developing COVID-19. So they should definitely get vaccinated.
So additional risks there and benefits to the being vaccinated. Thank you. Dr. Kandula, should someone, if they're believing that they want to look into long-term side effects, is that a reason that they shouldn't be getting those vaccines right now, or should they be looking to, see the benefits of what we're seeing right now and get vaccinated?
So to answer this question, I would just like to give a little bit background on the vaccine monitoring for the other vaccines that we have been doing over the years. So it has historically shown that side effects generally happen within 6 weeks of receiving the final dose of a vaccine. And that's why FDA has required each of the authorized COVID-19 vaccines to be studied for at least 2 months, which is about 8 weeks or more after the final dose. Given that we are still in a pandemic level of infection and seeing new cases and new variants which are more contagious and virulent, and now that we have a vaccine that has proven to be safe and effective, and definitely the benefits outweigh the risks, we should go ahead and get the younger kids vaccinated.
Thank you. Dr. Stecker, and I don't even know if you'll agree to this question, but it says, if it's true that COVID doesn't affect kids as much, why is a vaccine necessary? I'm assuming your office has been pretty busy with sick kiddos this year and the last year.
Yes, we definitely have. And Dr. Nanawar touched a lot on this as well. Historically, fewer children have tested positive for COVID compared to the adults, but they've also still suffered severe illness. And the children are important vectors of transmitting the virus, even if they're asymptomatic. So a lot of times they're the ones giving it to others without necessarily knowing that they were sick. The Delta variant is more highly contagious, and now we're seeing kids be infected at the same rates as the adults as well. So when children are ill, they have to miss school and activities. So even if they're not very ill, they're missing all of these things, and those are crucial to their development and their mental health. So less days missing in that is important for them. But they're also being hospitalized with COVID-19, which is traumatic to a kid. If you've ever spent any time with a kid in a hospital, that's no easy thing for them to do. And many children have died from COVID. Despite the numbers are less than adults, it's between the sixth to the eighth leading cause of childhood death since the pandemic has started. And I don't know about you, but I don't think any child death is acceptable. So the number to me, I would love it to be 0.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Dr. Nanawar, as we look kind of as kids do get vaccinated, does that mean they're going to stop wearing masks right away? Does that reduce the risk that's still in our community?
Not quite yet. As Dr. Stacher mentioned, that the Delta variant is very contagious and it still allows vaccinated people to possibly spread the virus. We are hoping to get to that point soon where we won't need masks as we do now. While we are still in a high transmission of the virus in our communities, it is still best to wear the mask indoors, whether you are vaccinated or not.
So really, anytime they're still gathering in groups and things like that, it'll still be important.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Kandula, tell us, how does this help make a difference in ending the pandemic?
Vaccination can give a reliable and persistent immune response or antibody levels than natural immunity following an infection. And if we can achieve above 80 to 85% vaccination rates in our communities, then the rates of infection will decline and we can have a sooner return to normalcy. We want our kids to be able to have play dates or be able to go to their after school activities or participate in sports. And with the winter coming up, the amount of stuff they can do outdoors is limited. So this is the way to have a return to normalcy soon.
We wanted to end with one last question that I know as a parent, I've asked my child's pediatrician this as well, but just in terms of any type of health things, if you had a child this age, would you be vaccinating your own child with this new vaccine? Why don't we start with Dr. Kandula?
Absolutely, yes. And I do have a child in this age group, and definitely we are getting it as soon as it's available. I feel very guilty for having said no to several play dates, and I just want to make sure. And I have felt very, very worried when we had the symptoms and we had to go through the test and the amount of time you spend waiting for the results, checking my phone every hour to see if it's negative. I just don't want to go through that anymore. So definitely going for it.
Dr. Stecker, can we ask you the same question?
Yes, absolutely. I have 2 of my 3 children are in this age group, so we will be first in line when it's officially approved.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Nanawar?
Yes, definitely. I have 2 children in this age group too. So I told my staff they will be the first one to get the vaccine in our clinic.
Well, thank you to our providers for sharing information on such a critical topic. It's also very timely. For parents and caregivers watching this, please make time to have that conversation with your child's healthcare provider. Based on those we've spoken with just today, they're all happy to give you the same information as well as advice on the particular health history of your child to make that informed decision. It's important to ask questions and get answers from trusted sources. And more information on this topic can be found from the Scott County and Rock Island County Health Department websites, as well as the CDC's website.